terrorist attacks in Europe, that is a risk-off event. You should look for yen strength typically, dollar strength typically, Swiss franc strength typically, maybe even Singapore dollar. But on the long run, I don't think it'll change anything in regards to global macroeconomics. So let's do our job, huh? I'm gonna be chewing on breakfast every once in a while, if you don't mind. Forex.Today, thank you for hosting us. Let me remind you that trading is risky and not appropriate for everyone. Your past performance, good or bad, is not necessarily indicative of future results. But please stay small, stay humble, focus on the long term, and never risk money you cannot afford to lose. So I've been listening to the radio, but I guess we should have TV going on as well. I'll fire that up for you. Hey, my name is Wayne. I'm a currency trader. I've traded through terrorist attacks more than once, I'm sorry to say. You know, sort of I send my regrets to and condolences to those who have lost family members in Europe in regards to this attack. In any case, we do these sessions every single day, Monday through Thursday here at Forex.Today, and every Friday at FXStreet.com, where I am Speaker of the Year. The goal is technical analysis. The goal is fundamental analysis. The goal is to teach you how to be a disciplined conservative trader that becomes profitable for many, many, many years to come in all market conditions, good or bad. So I hope you're on board with that mission, and it's a mission of peace and prosperity. Ryan asks a question: does the pound typically weaken during these geopolitical risk events? Okay, well let's talk about it this way. Let's change the conversation. Okay, where does the money go when scary things hit? Well, money is supposed to, in a healthy, normal market, supposed to be somewhere where it gets the highest return for a reasonable amount of risk. And then when bad things happen, scary bad things happen, money gets pulled out of those areas and brought back home, put somewhere safe, and that's usually things like U.S. Treasuries or Japanese government bonds or something to the like. So it just depends on where the money was. Okay, so you always have to, because my answer now could be different in the future. So you have to put yourself in the context of what's happening at the time. So if a lot of foreigners have put a lot of money into the UK, and then they feel this is a bad event, they're going to pull their money out, and that would be weak. That would weaken the British pound. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay. And so that's all it is. Now, just I guess let's put up the live charts here. All right. So one couple of thoughts here to share with you, because this may have been your first time in such a terrible event. But unless there is like military action, unless there is some massive terrorist attack where, you know, thousands of people die in the European Union or in America or something like that, it's not likely to change things on a macro level. So this is a horrible thing on the local level. But if anything, it's going to make Europe work together better and play well together on a security level, but then also they're going to perhaps at the top level, all the leaders are going to be able to pick up the phone and call each other. They're going to show solidarity in front of the cameras. And maybe they'll actually talk to each other about other things too and get things done. So in a weird way, it might actually be good for Europe as long as they can get the situation under control. But I remember there was a time when Japan and China were very upset over these islands, right, in the South China Sea. Do you guys remember that? And the media was making a big stink about it. And like, what should we do? What should we do? What should we do? And I asked the person at the time, I said, do you think missiles are going to fly over this? The answer was no. Then I said, then it won't change anything. Because if you're a very, very, very large institutional investor, okay, think about it. You got billions under management. And it takes a long time to build your positions and build your portfolio, doesn't it? You guys remember the conversation we had the other day where, I was I was buying the US dollar every day for a year, but every day for a year, George Soros was shorting the dollar. He was basically selling it to me, and I made a lot of money, but he made even more money the next year. So obviously it takes him a lot longer to get into position, right? Because he might put 100 billion trillion down, and I'm only trading 100,000 here, 30,000 there, right? Small time, right? So you're a billion. So you're a hedge fund manager, or sorry, institutional portfolio manager, and you have billions of dollars that you're managing for like insurance companies and endowments and big long-term investors, right? And you've also hedged, and you got some volatility things in there. You have quite a sophisticated setup. This terrorist attack in Brussels, as far as I know it so far, as bad as it is not likely to make that institutional investor move their billions of dollars. You see what I mean? They're not going to say, holy crap, I'm going to dump a year and a half's worth of work and get out. Now, in the short term, you're going to have, reactions and overreactions and stuff. But as far as big, is this going to drag the world economy down? It's not going to change anything. Now it can get worse, right? Terrorists seem to do lots of bad things. But as we know, as the situation is right now, typically you would expect the dollar to get strong. Typically you would expect the yen to get strong. Okay. Sometimes you'll find a flight to gold, even so. Sometimes you'll see gold strong, okay, and the dollar strong, and you're like, but, okay. But if Europe works together and solves this problem, if you got a problem, I'll solve it. Okay, then maybe on the long run, it's actually a very good thing because, we need Europeans to work together. And right now with, diverging economies, that's a scary thing. Yeah, so Kareem says, as ugly as it was, he bought the dip on the DAX. And what also can happen is that you have the big institutional managers that use algorithms, they have things in place to say, if we have a flash crash, let's say, like in 2 minutes, if the DAX drops 10%, buy something. Or sell in case it happens again. Who knows? Whatever the algorithm is. And very often you have buy orders. So you're like, well, if Apple drops 20% today, just buy some Apple shares. Because maybe out of the last 17 times that's happened, 15 times it goes back up. at least 50% of the drop. And you're like, boom, free money. So contingency plans, right? They're already in place. So on the 4 hour, doesn't seem to be a big move on gold, right? No high, no low. Don't worry about it, huh? Okay, so there's gold. Crude oil, no high, no low. Still an uptrend, eh? S&P 500. This is the hourly chart. I'm going to mark it up this way. Okay, seems like we've lost our uptrend. I'm going to mark it this way off the old high. Definitely a time of consolidation. So you should start making contingency plans. If it drops back to 2000, are you going to buy it again? Okay. What does the 4 hour say? What does it say, guys? It says it's going to drop down to the lower Bollinger Band. Let me get my drawing tool. Ryan says, just going back to an old question, so when you traded the Beast in 2008, well, in 2007, I predicted like a 3,500 pip crash in the pound yen, and it moved like 5,000 pips. But was that weak pound or strong yen? Or both? Okay. So anyways, okay, down to the 21, up, down to the 55. Okay. If you think it's going to come down here, then I think what it'll need to do is more like this, if you're going to head that far down. Absolutely, Ryan. It's called a step down. Okay, Oren says buy the 21. Well, you should have already done that if that was your plan. Okay, kind of a scary thing to do in that scenario, though, isn't it? So I wouldn't recommend it. If it's an abnormal market, you got to be careful. You don't trade like a machine when the market is emotional. Okay. But yeah, you could have had an order there and already, and then you were triggered. Would you do it now? No, it already did it. The other thing is, what does the 5-8 cross say? Okay. Also, this was already supposed to be a 21, a kickoff at 21, because remember the 21's lagging. So when it did this, it wasn't actually touching the 21. When it did this, it wasn't even actually touching the 21 because it's a lagging thing. It happens after the fact. So when you bought this, you were front running the idea that this was the 21 was going to come up. Because remember, the 21 would continue to move up if price was moving up. So if you're up here, now it's touching this area. So if you're buying the 21, really you should be up here by now on this time frame. The fact that we got a 5-8 cross down and really not really a higher high, right? What did it do? It came up, retraced, double topped, and then pulled all the way down. It feels like this to me. However you want to put that together on the smaller time frames is up to you, but there's a lot of little things going on here that say, well, with all of this going on, maybe we don't need to make higher highs. Now remember, the stock market got us to the point where we were back to break even for the year. Okay. What was that? 10% down, 10% up? So we're right back to where we were, eh? Like a ghost, they haunt me. Okay. So you have to put it together now. You say, Ryan, yeah. So you got to be careful with your language. Okay. S&P 500 down. Whoa. Technical analysis would suggest that there is weakness in this upward move. Okay. Investors in the 500 largest, U.S. publicly traded stocks don't have to pay attention to this technical analysis. Okay. So you just have to you say, well, as a technician, when I analyze the market, okay, it's still technically bullish, right? We know that, right? Does this look bearish? No, not here. Okay. So it's overbought for now, right? And we have a geopolitical risk going on. All right. Yeah, it wouldn't be shocking to do this, and and even come down and reset off the 200. So just we got to be very careful with our language, guys, because you can talk yourself into a lot. You got to be very, very careful. But yes, how about this? If the stock market were to fall, would the U.S. dollar get strong? Well, that depends, right? If, let's say, Americans cash out of the stock market and buy U.S. bonds, what happens to the U.S. dollar? Nothing. It's already in dollars. There'd be no increase or decrease in demand in dollars. Americans holding U.S. stocks, cashing out of U.S. stocks and buying U.S. bonds wouldn't have zero impact on the U.S. dollar. So again, who's doing the buying? Who's doing the selling? Okay, how about this? There's a terrorist attack a massive terrorist attack in Indonesia. The dollar could get strong. Whoa. Why? Well, billionaires in Indonesia and that whole region may decide to get out of their risky investments and buy something safe, like U.S. dollars, right? What would they do with the U.S. dollar? They would buy U.S. treasuries. Or they buy Japanese yen so that they can then use the Japanese yen to buy Japanese government bonds. So once again, who's doing the buying? The Japanese also tend to invest heavily overseas. Back in the day, I used to get a lot of questions in the media about the Japanese housewife, and that's because, well, the husband was working all day, she was the one that was managing the household money, and in Japan, what that means is you have to make foreign investments because the Japanese stock market was going down and yields were zero. Yeah, but only for 30 years, right? Yields were zero. Yeah, but only for 30 years. So what would you do? well, you'd have to invest overseas. It was just an absolute normal thing. So if something terrible happens overseas, money comes home. Or how about this? What do you do, or what should you have done after the earthquake tsunami that killed, what, 500,000 people globally, but also took out the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plants and all these things? The tsunami came in, destroyed cities in Japan. Hedge funds, within minutes of the announcement, would have bought things like stock in Japanese construction companies, right? Foreign exchange traders would have bought the Japanese yen. And you know, hedge funds have contingency plans for all kinds of things like this. For example, massive earthquake in Chile, copper goes up. Okay, cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. Okay, huge hurricane coming off the coast of Africa heading towards the Caribbean. Okay, if it comes in south towards the equator, buy oil futures, buy frozen concentrated orange juice futures. If it comes into the north side of the Caribbean, don't do anything. But definitely cancel your trip to Bermuda. Ryan, if something happened in Toronto, in the big TO, Toronto, or Montreal, nothing would happen. Okay. So, and the reason for that is there's no oil there. So it comes down to the attacks and geopolitical risks and stuff. They're very, very bad for business. And that's what will affect the global macroeconomics if it's on a large enough scale. I don't think Europe is going to shut down. Okay. So business, you know, life goes on, so to speak. Maybe it hinders business investment, you know, environment and stuff. But business goes on globally. And, you know, do you think when the banks open in Japan in 12 hours, because it's nighttime there, in 12 hours, banks in Japan are going to open. Do you think money's going to flow? Or has the global foreign exchange market frozen up? The global business market, the global transaction market is completely frozen? And that's it? Globally, we're frozen? Yeah, no, it's good. Banks are going to open, money's going to flow. Boom. Okay. Ryan says, so more yen strength than Asia? Well, I don't know. That's why you need to analyze it. What do you think? Oh no, you guys tell me. What do you think? Are things going to get worse as far as 24 hours going by? Are we going to learn more about the terrorists or less? Is it going to be a shock? Or is just multiple explosions near the European Parliament buildings? Is that the big shock that freaks people out? No, it'll settle because what it'll show is, I don't know, security, security and military troops walking through Brussels and all that kind of stuff. And the UK will have soldiers out on the street, right? And Paris will have soldiers on the street and quadruple the amount of security at airports, and everyone will feel good. Of course, nothing's happening, right? The terrorists are dead, so there's probably not a follow-up. And all of that's for show to make everybody feel good. I'll give you a funny example of it. It's necessary. I'm not saying it's not necessary. I'll give you a funny example. Excuse me. After the second space shuttle accident, and as you guys may recall, I was at space camp, so this is why it's on my brain. It came down from the top of the U.S. government to the heads of NASA, and they say, you know, this can't happen again. This is a horrible tragedy. It's on all the news. You know, politicians more concerned about their reputations than anything, right? And NASA's like, yeah, well, you know, flying in space is kind of dangerous. And even the ones on board knew there was likely going to be a crash, and they already said their goodbyes, and they actually said that. They're like, you know, this is a dangerous job, and we understand it. So, you know, the idiots at the top forced NASA to have an escape plan. So they had to like change their spacesuits and change this and change that and spend millions of dollars. And then they could tell the US public that that was a horrible tragedy, but you know, the American government has looked into it and we now have an escape plan. Okay, so let's say, I want you to picture this. You put on your spacesuit, you got a special spacesuit. It's really special, right? It's special. It's really special. And okay, good. It's really nice. Now, jump out of a rocket that has 10 million pounds of thrust behind it and is moving 8,000 miles through the Earth's atmosphere. Bail out, dude. Like, it's so insanely stupid. I mean, you just can't do it. But it had to be built in to make the public feel safe. Well, there's always the escape route, which is, what, open the door at 8,000 miles an hour? And I'm not joking, literally 8,000 miles an hour. 10.6 million pounds of thrust. Jump out, dude. Hey, roll down the window. You see the view from up here? I mean, it's insane. Yeah, you go first, dude. It's insane. But they actually did it. There's an escape route, just in case. Well, it's sort of like, you know, we're gonna spend $100 million on extra security, right? So another thing that you should probably do is find out what companies do the airport security machines that go beep. Oh no, I have keys in my pocket. Holy smokes, eh? Find those companies. Maybe you want to buy that stock and all that kind of stuff. And we're going to pile in billions and millions of billions into stuff like that. And it's all for show, and it probably doesn't matter. But that's what we do. Have a pointless escape plan. But it makes everybody feel safe. What else are you going to do? Nothing? That's stupid too, right? So you got to do something, but we'll overreact. But in the long run, hopefully it's peace and prosperity to everybody. Not just us, you know, where the terrorists come from, obviously life's pretty bad. There's a reason people are pretty mad. Life for some is pretty bad. So hopefully peace and prosperity to everybody, right? Love will save the day. So, you know, I don't see commodity markets freaking out, right? Gold is not freaking out. Oil's not freaking out. The S&P 500 doesn't seem to be plunging. But, you know, it's not good for business. And some stocks are going to lose, but some stocks will win, and maybe it'll balance off. So like I said, you know, security companies, for example, under a terrorist attack will probably do well. So think about the screeners at the airport. Find out what company makes those. And you'll probably find out that the stock jumped today or is about to jump. You see what I mean? And so some stocks will lose and some will probably win. I don't expect a big rally today because everyone feels good that there were terrorist attacks, right? So it's not good for business. And on the short run, it's what it's going to do is maybe be a drag on the European recovery. You know, if Europeans decide to lock down all their borders, that's bad for trade. That's not good for business. Ryan says, "Is it okay to make money from situations like this?" Well, you can choose to not do anything, which is sort of like an ostrich sticking their head in the sand, right? You can choose to lose money. You can make money and take care of your family, or if it seems to be a negative impact on your consciousness, on your conscious, um, then make money and donate it to a charity that you think will have a positive impact. Okay? Money's not evil. Okay? Rich people are not bad. So, why don't you make money and do two things: take care of your family, and then give some to charitable causes that will have a positive impact on this situation. Yeah. So the nonprofit organization I've been a part of for 25 years now. I've sat on the board of directors. I've sat on several board of advisors at the local level. I speak at conferences and I've donated money. And it's trying to solve the world's problems through cultural understanding and awareness, and highlighting the differences in cultures in a positive way, and getting to know each other and understand each other by working together and growing and sharing that information with others. And ultimately, I do believe that's how you make the world a better place. By challenging yourself to grow outside of your own borders, your own physical and mental and spiritual borders, and go out and challenge yourself to do great things. And those great things should also impact others so that it changes their world too. So you have your own sort of your world that you see and perceive around you, and usually that's completely wrong. So once you get out and start getting new experiences, you realize how little you actually knew. And if you're doing things that have a positive impact on others, then you're changing their world as well. And all of a sudden, you get this big snowball effect. So learning and understanding and growing by working with others and learning about how they're different and how their culture is different, or even as how similar it is, sharing and growing together. And you know what? I've seen it work. I've seen it work. Okay, now. So make money and do something positive with it, right? How about that? Another way of looking at it, if you don't mind me saying it from a different point of view, since Ryan brought it up, doing nothing usually has no impact or no positive impact, right? So if you can do something to make money and then use that money perhaps to have a positive impact, then the world needs a hero. You know what I mean? Do something. Most people don't do anything in a crisis. So I have a big experience. I don't know how you guys get me into this. I was driving down I-5 in California, actually driving north, actually, from Los Angeles to San Francisco. And there was a massive car accident just in front of me, and I had to throw the car into the ditch doing about 80 miles an hour, narrowly dying. And there's fireballs of explosion, right? And there's semi trucks, swerving all over the place, and cars screeching, car accidents, boom, 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 all around me. And I'm in the ditch. I'm doing 80 miles an hour. But because of my training at NASA, I knew where we were. I actually knew the mile marker, and I had my hand on my cell phone before I even got the car to a full stop. This is pretty interesting. It actually happened. Called 911. They asked, where are you? Has anyone been on the I-5? Highway 5? You could be on this thing for 12 hours and have no idea where you are. It's just fields and hills. I mean, there's nothing. I knew where we are. Told them which exit we had just passed, which mile marker we had passed. They said, we have, CHP and ambulances on the way. And I said there were injuries. Good. Boom. Got that taken care of. And then I look up, and I'm not joking, there's 30 people standing all along the road. Finally, all the cars had stopped. There's 30, 40 people like standing there right at the accident. Just standing there. I'm like, what's everyone doing? You know what was happening? There was 2 people in the back of a car. Or no, sorry, in a car. The back end of the car was missing because the semi-truck had hit it so hard. And the car's on fire, and there's 2 people inside. Flames inside the car. So I saved their lives. And while everyone stood there. Eventually, the truck driver, he had a crowbar, and the doors to the car, we couldn't even open it because the frame had bent so much. So he came in with, he had a crowbar behind the seat, to hit bad guys with. So he came in, and we ended up just smashing the window and pulling them out. And it was so hot because the car is actually on fire. It's going to explode any second. So we're pulling them out the window, and it was so hot that the headlights at the front of the car exploded. And by the way, my heart stopped. We pulled them out, saved their lives. Everyone else stood there and watched. 30 or 40 people watched me and the truck driver. And the truck driver was second there. He's like, oh my God, that guy's going to pull them out. And I'm kicking the window. I can't get through the window. I can't get the door open. Just amazing. Most people do nothing. And let me tell you, pulling them out of a burning car was, doing something. No, I don't need the thanks. I'm just saying most people do nothing. They're like, wow, did you see that? That was interesting. So do something, right? Add to the cause. Chip in. No, it's just, honestly, that was my training at NASA, right? So they would test me all the time on, high stress situations and react. And so I know, set up a perimeter, make sure the traffic's safe, make sure, just analyze things. You go through boom, 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 whatever. It's easy if you don't freak out. So anyways, do something, get involved, right? All right, so then let's make some money. So money seems to be flowing out of the UK at the moment. All that money that went in over the last few weeks suddenly seems to be negatively impacted by this. And this shows the Japanese yen getting strong. Okay, relative to this. Now you can see if it goes up, we're going to have to do a little dipsy-do. But in this case, we're kicking off of a 5 EMA, right? We have down, back to the 5, okay, down, back to the 5. So there is a bit of this going on. But on this time frame, 5 EMA is pretty hot, man. I mean, it's aggressively falling. So New York opens, it could do this as well. You should be careful. So right now the 5 is in control. And it's squeezing price down, okay? The next one will be the 21. Both of these moving averages are aggressively bearish, okay? And when New York opens, I don't think they're going to say, oh, wow, now's the time to buy, right? So this is just money moving into safety. It's had an opportunity to react, however, but, let people in New York get their money out if that's what they want to do today. And start setting up your contingency plans, right? So what are you going to do on the 4 hour? What are you going to do on the daily? How far is this going to fall? If you're going to buy again, are you going to buy at support? If so, where support, right? And you just take it step by step by step instead of like trying to process all the information like, oh. No, right? Is it safe to be on the road? Has traffic stopped? Have I called for backup? What is the situation with the car? Are there people in the vehicle? Is it on fire? How much time do I have? Where do I pull them out to? That was a problem. You know, and you just break it down into pieces. So in this case, if it's coming down, am I still a bull? Do I want to buy pound yen? Do I want to sell pound yen? Okay, what happens if it comes down to this level? Is this a buy zone? What kind of price action would I look for down here? Is it going to come down this far? Well, it seems to me if it comes down to that lower support, it's basically a 786. And you're going to play it more like a double bottom, right? Notice how this one is a 618? Okay, good. If it comes down, so let's say it comes up today, retests 160, sells off, comes back down to 158.50-ish, maybe. Is there an opportunity to consider buying? And the answer would be yes. So if that's a 4-hour, and we were down here, what would you look for on the 15-minute? What would you look for on the 5-minute to have it go back up? Okay, if the trend prevails. This whole time, however, you could have been a bear. I just want you to make a decision, okay? And this whole thing is a massive coincidence, okay? Do you see where the downtrend started? Okay. This is why I tell you, you know, I prefer that you don't play, you know, swing. I prefer you don't swing both ways like a broken gate, right? What I teach you is to pick a side, pick a direction, and wait and wait and wait and wait and wait. A bear, you know, this is a sweet spot for a bear to sell. Oh, where's my mouse? Okay. And I'd rather you, instead of being long and short and short and long and long and short and short and long, I'd rather like look at your trading history and basically see you stubborn where you were a bear, let's say, during this move and you did very well. There's some big pullbacks here. And that you sold here, maybe you didn't make money. You sold here because of the 382 and you made a little bit, but it got knocked out. Then you sold here and then it dropped. And then you sold here, you know, and your plan is this. But I'd like to see, you know, ideally over the last, let's say 3 months or 3 years, that you were selling rallies. And I say, oh, over the last 3 months, this trader has been selling rallies on the British pound. Okay, versus trying to figure it out every day, right? And that isn't that the message that I've been trying to say, that you should know what you're going to do next week and next month. You're certainly not figuring it out right now, right this second. You know what I mean? What is your plan? What's your portfolio? Wasn't that the idea in January, where you do the PowerPoint presentation and you, as if you're talking to an investor, and you say, hey, investor, with your $1 million, I plan on buying lots of Japanese yen in the first quarter. You see what I mean? So then when pound yen is rallying like it's done recently, you get a lot of break-even trades, but you're not really making any money. Well, that's fine. That happens, right? Okay. But write this down because bad things happen all the time. So I want you to make sure you have this, not just mentally, but you know, you need to store it in multiple parts of your brain. Geopolitical risk and natural disasters in places that have a major impact on global economics, okay, you tend to see the dollar get strong, and you tend to see the Japanese yen get strong. This is typically it. Okay, huge earthquake in California destroys Los Angeles. You're probably buying the US dollar. Okay, and Japanese yen, even though it has nothing to do with Japan. Oh, so you did. So I mentioned that on the Paris attacks. Cool. All right. Well, good job then, Ryan. But I know you document, so good. So what else? What else for risk on? Well, one thing that you should look at is which one. You understand? Well, the dollar often gets strong. The yen often gets strong. Okay, that's nice. Which one are you going to buy first, yo? And you should have this up and open and running as you're trading. Okay, let me get rid of that. Okay. So I look over here. You see this? Where I'm pointing? That's my USD yen. Okay. And that tells me, do I sell pound dollar or do I sell pound yen? Okay. Do you notice that yen reacted more than dollar? Do you watch it though in real time? And then also, welcome to Wayne University. You have 1 hour to write an essay explaining what happened. Why did the Japanese yen get stronger than the US dollar in this time of geopolitical stress? You may begin. A lot of people would be shocked by it, right? How many people before Forex realized stuff like that happened? Terrorist attack in Brussels, Japanese yen, the strongest currency in the world. You're like, what the heck does that have to do with Japan? It's fascinating stuff, right? The smarter that you get, the less you know, the less you realize you don't know. Flowers for Algernon. Do you guys know that story? About a mentally challenged boy who receives experimental medicine that turns him from, dim-witted, because he's mentally challenged, to suddenly to a genius. And he gets so smart as a child that he figures out that his medicine's going to wear off and he's going to go back to being dim-witted. What a horrible story. I read it in like 6th grade. Yeah, I think he becomes a day trader of stocks. I'm going to straddle Apple. No, wait, I'm going to strangle Apple. I'm going to, yeah. So very fascinating stuff, I think. So keep your eyes on the prize here. Weekly central pivot point. If this heads down, if that's the top of the week, our target is going to be the pivot cluster of the monthly support pivot with the weekly S2. That puts us back down to $1.08. And 4 hour doesn't disagree. And we have a triple bottom in there somewhere, according to a post on Forex.Today yesterday. Yeah. So that puts us low, man. Okay. I've got yen in low places where the sushi drowns and the sake chases my blues away. Yeah, so that's what it says, yo. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. That's just the technical analysis. It's not my opinion, right? So again, we got to be careful with the language. But that's what that chart says. You have any questions, thoughts, concerns? Kareem, why would they intervene? Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. If people want to buy Japanese government bonds, they're going to buy Japanese government bonds. And I don't think it'd be the place for the Bank of Japan to try to intervene. Remember, the Bank of Japan is trying to manage their economy, not necessarily this stuff, right? Like manage the strength of the yen. Same thing with the Fed. They mention things like this. Where they're not. So the Fed's a little worried now about global macroeconomics, but that's a very new thing. But look, if people want to buy Japanese government bonds, they're going to do it, and that's not the place. So do you guys know about the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, the SPR, in the United States? Oh, Ryan says, do pivot points? Yeah, well, yeah, they actually do. So, like, the big question is, does the U.S. government release oil and gasoline and increase supply of the market simply because prices are too high? Because every time gasoline prices go to $4, people start saying, Strategic Petroleum Reserve. But that's not its point. It's a supply. It's an issue of supply. If there's a shortage of supply, you can or if supplies are threatened or displaced, then it normalizes. But it's not there for a pricing mechanism. And same sort of thing with the like central banking. It's there, like in the United States, it has a dual mandate to ensure the economy is healthy and that inflation is in check. It doesn't say about manage the US dollar, right? Now, what the Fed is learning, and it's amazing because these guys are highly educated adults and they're just starting to figure it out, that hey, the United States and the value of the US dollar impacts other economies. It's so fascinating. Which means Harvard will be teaching about it in 20 years. Yeah, it'll be good. By then I'll be 80 and they'll say, "You know what, Wayne, you were right." And I'll be that really old professor, right? Okay, children, open your books to page 322. And they're like, "Books? Come on, Grandpa. We haven't had books at Harvard in 30 years. Oh, shut your mouth. Right? So, anyways, I'll be that old man at the front of the classroom. So, yen, right? Looks like yen's going to come down. Is there anything in particular that you would like to sell? Right? Is there something that you've been waiting to sell? Right? So there's various thought processes. If global macroeconomics are not positively impacted, then the risk is going to be that it's negatively going to impact things. And will commodities be positively or negatively affected by the possibly negative effect? Right, so you start thinking about these. Which one was overbought more, Aussie or CAD? Well, CAD's been weak for a while. And Aussie dollar's been above 70, in which we printed a floor. I don't remember how we were stuck at 69, 70, 69, 70, 69, 70. I'm like, we're printing a floor, we're printing a floor. Well, now we're up 600 pips, right? So which one is more overbought? Because if you're thinking about selling something, ideally you're selling when it's overbought, not oversold. Well, CAD's been weak. So that can't be overbought. So what about Aussie yen? If yens look stronger than dollar, here's my mouse, then maybe, and so even though I'm going through this slow, you need to have done all this work in probably 1 minute. Okay. Okay. And does it look like the world has freaked out? Like, holy smokes, look at that Aussie yen. Holy. Yeah, all right. Well, then maybe we shouldn't freak out. Okay. So finance minister Aso, Japanese finance minister Aso, reiterated that he does not believe fiscal action is needed at this time, and that economic fundamentals are solid. All right. The guy in charge of finance at the government in Japan, okay? He's the Japanese government. He says the government's policy is good and nothing needs to be changed in Japan. We're good, he says. Nothing needs to be done. Everything's perfect. Let me tell you this. Central banking, let's say central banking and monetary policy around the world has gotten to a point where more monetary policy, and that's monetary policy is the stuff that central banks do, like money supply. Okay? We have negative interest rates around the world. We have quantitative easing around the world. Interest rates have been at zero for almost 10 years, it seems. Okay. Everything that can be done has been done, and we're even trying things that never thought could be done. And there's even limited impact on that crazy stuff, right? So central banks have very little more than they can do except more radical, extreme stuff. What needs to be done around the world is governments need to get their act together and fix things, because the central banks have been doing everything for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and the governments have done very little. Maybe they should increase spending, maybe they should lower taxes, whatever. Do whatever it takes. But nothing's really being done. So I think it's really funny that, Japan is still, after 30 years, in recession. On again, off again recession. And the guy in charge of finance for the whole Japanese government says that he does not believe fiscal, which means government, he does not believe fiscal action is needed at this time. And it's like, it's funny. Like, really? That's amazing. Wow. Good. Everything in Japan's good, everybody. It's been fixed. Well, that's his point of view. That's almost scary, right? So he's either lying or, not quite telling the full truth, or he actually represents the fiscal policy of the Japanese government, because he's the finance minister, and he actually believes everything's good. Maybe he should raise taxes, huh? Amazing. How confused, right? How confused. So anyways, thank you, Aso. Everything's good. Right? Oh, but wait. Also today, March PMI came out for the manufacturing industry, which seems like it might be important to the Japanese economy. It came out 49.1. But that's supposed to be above 50. You see what I mean? Like, that's actually contraction. That's like recession. It's worse even since just last month. Oh, no. But everything's cool, dude. Everything's cool. Yeah, our manufacturing sector is contracting. Oh, no. But the economy is fine. And nothing the government can do would help that. Well, like I said, doing something is better than doing nothing. And hiding your head, pretty amazing stuff, huh? The audacity of even to say something like that. Okay. So bad PMI came out of the Eurozone and Eurozone countries, France, Germany, they all miss. Eurozone comes in as expected, which sucks. German IFO beat expectations, great. Got some consumer sentiment, great. All right, but pound comes down. UK CPI, bad number. It's not as bad as it could have been, but it wasn't great. Another reason for the pound to come down. Or like I showed you earlier, the pound coming down could simply be the fact that it hit resistance and that the 4-hour wanted to come down. Maybe that's all it was. Maybe that's all it needs to be, right? Here's an interesting little thing. The Chinese vice finance minister said that there is no secret pact between the United States and China for FX adjustments to allow the US dollar to depreciate. So there's a secret pact. How awesome is that? Now, let me comment on this. Many years ago, the euro was unbelievably strong. Unbelievably strong. And I was in Connecticut at the Mercedes vintage racing weekend, racing vintage Lotuses, and there were Bugattis and Ferraris and Porsches, all that kind of stuff. Beautiful stuff. I'm sitting on the hill because there's like, it's just racers, right? There's no fans or anything. And I decided I've been on the paddock for 2 days, right? So I got my lungs are filled with burning oil and rubber. So I decided I'll go up on the hill and watch some of the racers from up there. I'm sitting on the grass, and there's another dude there. I'm like, hey man, what's going on? Not much. What do you do? Oh, I'm the vice president of BMW United States, something like that, or president of BMW United States. I'm like, oh, must suck to sell European cars for U.S. dollars, right? And you know what he said to me? He said, well, it's interesting. We used to be the sponsor of this event, but we don't make any money selling cars in the United States. Chow! What? BMW was selling hundreds of thousands of cars. I don't know, lots of cars in the United States. But by the time they converted their weak US dollars to expensive euros, there was no profit in it. So they're like, we don't even really want to sell any more cars. So we're not advertising. We cut our advertising budget because we don't want to sell cars in the United States. No joke, huh? So they gave it to Mercedes. Good enough. So it was like the Mercedes Rolex, vintage, whatever. Awesome. Had a great time. Hung out at the CEOs of New Yankee Candles place. Man, had a great time. Let me tell you, that guy made a lot of money selling candles to women. So euro was that strong. So here's the thing. I think it was Trichet. Yeah, it was Trichet. Trichet then goes on a trip to China. By the way, who do you think was buying euros? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Trying to diversify away from holding, $1 trillion US dollars worth of assets. Who do you think was buying euros? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Trichet is in China. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yeah, so China, this is all speculation and conjecture, guys, as long as you know this. China's worried about holding, they had just crossed, I think, about the same time. I can't quite remember. Maybe I'm wrong here. But anyways, they're sitting on like $1 trillion US dollars worth of stuff. And they're thinking, wow, the dollar's getting weak. The dollar's getting weak. The dollar's getting weak. The dollar's getting weak. Maybe we should not hold so many dollars. So they start buying euro. What happens to the euro when China starts tiptoeing in, buying, 100 million here, 100 million there? Yeah. But no one would admit this. No one would say this. This is what I was talking about. And then so Trichet goes, I think it was even an unscheduled meeting. I'm like, what's the deal with Trichet in China? 3 days later, the euro collapsed. Huh. That's interesting. Well, maybe it had something to do with China selling euros and buying dollars to help out the European Central Bank. And now they're like, hey, we don't have a secret pact with the United States to allow the US dollar to weaken. We totally don't have something like that. Well, then what made you say it? So I think it's interesting and totally within the realms of possibility. That's interesting. Meanwhile, the Reserve Bank of Australia has been censored by the U.S. Treasury. Bad RBA. Bad RBA. Governor Stevens, sit in a corner. Jack Lew at the U.S. Treasury has said that the RBA has been talking down the Aussie currency and attempting to change direction of exchange rates. Very bad, Australia. Wait, they've been doing that for years now. But according to last night, China says they don't have a secret pact to devalue the US dollar with the United States. And then that same day, the United States says, hey, Australia has been manipulating their currency very bad. I think it's quite a coincidence all this stuff is happening on the same day. Very interesting. We don't manipulate our currency, but Australia does. Isn't that funny? What a coincidence, guys. And then one thing I'd like to throw in there that I don't know anything about, but something that maybe as contemporaries we can think about. And I had mentioned this before. Maybe something good comes out of this terrorist attack where the Europeans start working together, talking. And they realize we really do have one giant economy that should be managed better, not 7 or 8 or 10 or 12 economies kind of sharing things but not working together at all, lying to each other in some cases. Greece, right? Maybe something comes out and says, you know what? We don't have, 100 borders. We should have a European border. We don't have 100 different, economies. We should have one economy. And we should start, breaking down our own cultural barriers and start to develop a European culture. And then maybe something like Brexit doesn't happen. Right? Maybe someone says, a European problem is a British problem. So, maybe it's the beginning of something good. But it could also be the beginning of the end of the world. I've seen lots and lots of end of the world movies and stories. And it usually starts out with something like this and it just snowballs. And you think, wow, if I can only travel back in time and stop that terrorist attack in Belgium, I could save the future. So there's a reason why I say it every day, and I do mean it. And I hope the world works toward it. I'm an old man, so I've done my part as a young man. Hopefully the new generation brings peace. But I say it every day for a reason. Peace on earth. May the pips be with you. May your profits be above average. I'll see you guys tomorrow, huh? Right? Don't freak out. Set up your next trade. Be smart about it. Cheers.